Good day and welcome to the CardOnce in-branch instant card issuance conference call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Nicole Machado. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chris. And I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. As Chris mentioned, my name is Nicole Machado, and I'm the Senior Operations Manager for Harland Clarke Card Services. My colleague Greg Kuyava and I plan to spend the next 45 minutes or so talking about Instant Issue, and in particular, Harland Clarke's Instant Issue solution, CardOnce. Throughout the presentation, there are going to be several ways that you can ask questions. You can certainly send a question via chat through the WebEx to the panelists, or if you'd like to submit a question via Twitter at #HCCards. And for those who are inclined to ask questions verbally, we will pause for questions 2 times throughout the presentation. So certainly feel free to ask questions throughout. So let's start by reviewing the agenda. I'll give a little background on Harland Clarke Card Services, do a quick industry overview and review key takeaways, and then talk about why a financial institution should look into offering Instant Issue and what kinds of Instant Issue options are in the market today. And then finally, Greg will spend a good chunk of time looking at our CardOnce solution and why we believe it's the optimal Instant Issuance solution in the market. So with that said, let me tell you a little bit about Card Services. We started in 1996 by Liberty Check Printers as a way to diversify product and service offerings beyond the check to financial institutions. Card Services became part of the John Harland Company with the Liberty acquisition, and finally part of Harland Clarke Payment Solutions. We service over 1,100 financial institutions across 3 very distinct product lines, which include prepaid card services. We have several turnkey prepaid programs such as gift, travel, and general purpose reloadable. We offer card manufacturing. And finally, we do card production or issuance, which is obviously the encoding and embossing and fulfillment of cards, which is where Instant Issue falls. Last year, we manufactured over 5 million ATM debit and credit cards and issued just over 2.5 million cards. So let's take a quick look at the industry. I'm not going to read through all of these bullets, but did want to bring your attention to a few items that I think are particularly insightful. Those of us in the industry know how important debit cards are to consumers, and that debit card tends to be the preferred payment option for most, which the first 3 bullets here support. And we know more account holders are choosing their primary financial institution because of convenience. According to an article that was written by George Wolbert, Power of On-Demand Card and Personalization, he had outlined that consumers don't want to wait for bank cards any longer. So interestingly, most financial institutions do not offer instant issuance. But of those that do, 85% of them believe it supports their account holder service model extremely well. So as we can tell there's a lot of opportunity. And lastly, a recent Ernst & Young survey on bank customer trust found that 48% of consumers plan to change financial institutions due to general service levels. So as you're kind of looking at the overview and looking at these last 3 bullets in particular, you can kind of ask yourself, how does your financial institution kind of measure up there? Okay, so key takeaways. If you can just advance 1 slide. Perfect, thanks. The majority of consumers choose their financial institution because of convenience. Consumers don't want to wait for a bank card. And the 85% of financial institutions that offer instant issuance today believe it does support their account holder service goals. So a few other items we know to be true. In this economy, consumers are much more price sensitive and skeptical. Consumers want convenience and customization. Consumers want great service, but at an affordable price. And debit cards continue to be high in demand for consumers. The better an FI can tailor their service model to the individual consumer, the more loyal that consumer or account holder becomes, making it less likely that they will change financial institutions. So, all that being said, why should a financial institution offer instant issue? So we kind of have listed out here a number of benefits of instant issue. Number one, improved cardholder experience. Cardholders will no longer need to wait 7 or 10 days to get their card in the mail. Instant issue cards have increased activation and utilization rates. In most cases, these cards are activated almost immediately and can be used right away. Enhanced security. You know, the cards are not out kind of bouncing around in the USPS. You're able to hand it directly to your account holder across the desk. Increased profitability. Obviously, the increased usage and being able to use it potentially 7 to 10 days sooner than they would otherwise is going to lead to increased interchange income. Emergency card replacement. This would eliminate the need to expedite an order from the card production house, which, as we all know, can be quite costly and sometimes time-consuming if that account holder is leaving town that day or needs it that day. Often from a card production house, the soonest you would ever get a card would be next day. Reduce expense. You can take some of the fixed costs out of your card production, such as postage, not only for the card but for the PIN as well. And then competitive advantage, just kind of going back to some of our key takeaways of convenience and service. So you can see that there's a lot of benefits there. So now that we understand the benefits of instant issue in general, we need to understand the different types of instant issue solutions in the market today. There are a number of providers of instant issue, and no matter who they are, they're going to fall into kind of one of these two camps, either software for sale or software for service. So software for sale is also kind of what we call a centralized model. So everything regarding the running of the instant issue program is centralized within the financial institution. So in turn, they almost become a self-contained card production facility. So financial institutions have to purchase software, printers, and PIN pads. They have to have a dedicated server and network to run the instant issue program. The financial institution is responsible for setting up all components of the program, such as properly loading and maintaining secure keys for both PIN and CVV or CVC. They're responsible for all ongoing system maintenance and installation of software upgrades. And generally speaking, these programs tend to require significant financial resources, particularly in the areas of IT and operations. The second kind of option is what we call software for service, and that is more of a decentralized model. So cards are printed at the branch, but the actual card data flow is similar to what you would experience today in your standard daily card production. So there's no software to purchase, but the financial institution still does need to purchase printers and PIN pads. The financial institution does not need to have a dedicated server or network, as the data, the card data, flows through the instant issuance provider's server and network. All the program setup is done at the instant issuance provider, such as loading and maintaining those secure keys we talked about, both for PIN and CVC or CVV. All the system maintenance and upgrades are handled by the instant issuance provider, which ultimately leaves minimal IT and operation resources needed at the financial institution. So our CardOnce, Harland Clarke's CardOnce solution is a software for service model. So in just a few minutes, Greg will go into great detail on just what exactly that means and also provide more specific features and functionalities of CardOnce. But before we do that, we want to pause here just for questions in case anyone has any general questions about instant issue.
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please signal by pressing the star key followed by the digit 1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Also, if you pressed star 1 earlier today during today's call, please press star 1 again to ensure our equipment has captured your signal. Once again, please press star 1 to ask a question, and we'll pause just a moment to allow everyone an opportunity to signal for questions.
While we are waiting for the questions that are coming in via the telephone to queue up, my name is Greg Kuyaba. There are a couple of questions that did come in through the Q&A of the WebEx. First one is there a handout to go with this webinar? We will be distributing both this particular presentation as well as the recording of this presentation at the end. So once we complete this, all those that have registered and have attended this webinar will receive this handout and recording of the session. Another question that came in is, does Harland have any support available for writing policy/procedure for instant issue, particularly as it relates to security and control of the cards and 404 separations? Harland Clarke does not provide support from a sense of writing the policy or the procedure for instant issue. What we do have available are the current guidelines and security guidelines from both Visa and MasterCard that, if requested through your Harland Clarke account executive or key account executive, that we'd be able to distribute those out to you. There is another question from Lisa Sullivan. What are the benefits of purchasing the software instead of the software as service models? The benefits for purchasing the actual software for service versus the software as service models. That's an interesting question. I think really what it comes down to is the resources that you have available and the resources that are needed versus the two different programs. The software for purchase models have been around longer. There is, in their particular models, they tend to have the option of both either an embossed card or a flat print technology. The program that we're going to talk about today will be flat print only, which is where most of the market is going to at this point. But really, I think it's not necessarily a benefit. It's a matter of resources that are available on that. Let's see. Looks like we have a couple more questions that are coming in. One more is, do you support EMV? Excellent question. EMV, just to level set for those that may not know, the Euro, MasterCard, Visa chip that is becoming more and more part of the U.S. market has been everywhere else in the world for a number of years. And as Visa and MasterCard and even Discover and American Express put some regulations and rules and specs around what they want their processors to do and even merchants to do in the future, EMV is becoming more popular and at some point will become an integral part of any type of debit or credit or ATM type of card. As far as CardOnce goes and the Harland Clarke solution, is we are going into a testing phase in fourth quarter of 2012 where we will be piloting with a financial institution the EMV through instant issue, with our goal and our hopes, as long as the pilot stays on track, to have EMV available within the market through our instant issue solution Q1 or Q2 of 2013. So it is right around the corner. We have one more question. What if the FI already has a vendor that processes cards? Can we still use this Harland offer? Another excellent question. Harland Clarke can provide you just the instant issue solution, in which case we would then handle the new card orders that you are processing through the instant issue printers and perhaps any type of replacement cards that need replacement for lost, stolen, whatever the case might be. You could certainly then keep your existing relationship with your current card processing card issuance provider for those monthly reissues on those cards that are about to expire. So you could have dual relationships. Obviously, Harland Clarke is a provider of those personalization services as well. So if you wanted to consolidate your partnerships in that, we could certainly do that as well. That looks like all the questions at this point through the webinar. Chris, I will send it back to you to see if there were any questions that came in through the telephone.
And again, it's *1 if you'd like to ask a question. And there are no further questions at this time. I'll turn the conference back over to Mr. Kuyava for additional remarks.
All right. Thank you very much. As Nicole had stated, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the details of the CardOnce program and what we have available. And we are going to talk a little bit and specifically of what we have. And as Nicole has suggested, is that we are a software for service. And the details of these programs, and one of the big benefits that we provide is that there will be no upfront software purchase from us, which then also eliminates any ongoing licensing fees, any annual fees. You don't have to worry about the number of seats in which you are purchasing that have rights into the actual software that is available. And of course, without any software purchase, that then obviously means that there is no software setup, which then obviously minimalizes the amount of IT prep and operation prep that goes into preparing this. Other considerations, of course, we do have a hardware purchase, and the hardware for our program would include a printer, and within the printer there's the router and the firewall. It is a single unit. It does have a relationship with a USB that has an encrypting software that goes into the printer. Along with our hardware purchase, the nice thing about our hardware purchase is the one-time buy up front. With our hardware purchase, there is no service contracts or maintenance agreements that you're having to purchase alongside of it. And we can talk a little bit about that in a little bit. There's also consumables, and this would be common with any instant issue program. Your consideration of the type of card stock, the type of ribbon that you're going to use to print on the card stock, and then any type of inventory management that you want to have. You are going to certainly hold some inventory in your vaults at your branches in a secured location. However, you may have a greater card stock that you are running through these machines inventoried at a secured facility like our facility in our vault. Cardholder selected PIN solution. How that cardholder is going to select their PIN and the options that are available to them. If you have an existing type of hardware that allows your cardholder to come in and select their PIN, that may be something that continued to be used with our CardOnce solution. We'd certainly like to have a conversation around that, so there may not be any need to upgrade or change that equipment. If you do not have that ability to allow them to change their PIN using a piece of hardware, we do provide a PIN solution that at the time of opening up the account and before we actually even process the card order and encode it and print it, that customer will be able to select their personalized PIN. And then ongoing issuance and reissuance provided. Again, this kind of dovetails back to the question that was asked as far as ongoing existing processing relationships for card issuance. Harland Clarke is a full-on personalization provider. We receive from hundreds of financial institutions on a nightly basis thousands of brand new card orders. On a monthly basis, we receive from our 1,000 clients monthly reissues that allows us to then reissue cards that are about to expire. You could certainly look to Harland Clarke as part of that existing relationship and expanded relationship. And so whether it's something that you use us just for the instant issue solution or it's something that you expand our relationship and you look to us for the ongoing reissuance and personalization, that would be in order as well. So why CardOnce? When we were going to the market, one of the things that we wanted to do is, as a third-party provider and as a provider of this service, is that we wanted to make sure that we were able to differentiate our product and sell something different than really what most of the other competitors have been selling, and they have been doing in the market for a number of years. And really the only option out in the market for the, for the past 20-some years has been software for purchase, where you are purchasing the software, you're having to purchase a dedicated server, you're having to connect the network itself, you're having to do all of those things. As we looked at Instant Issue and trying to find our niche into it, there were a couple of key notes that we wanted to do. Number one, we wanted to take a note from community-sized financial institutions. What were some of the main hurdles, the main objections that they had for getting into Instant Issue and utilizing that program? As Nicole had pointed out, it's something that was very obvious and in need and in demand within the markets that you were serving. The consumers definitely wanted it from a matter of convenience. It certainly could enhance the overall new account opening experience. So there were a lot of needs that could be met through Instant Issue, but there were a number of hurdles that just didn't get a number of financial institutions into the game. And some of the things that we heard were what we keyed into as to why we think that CardOnce is an excellent solution. First and foremost is the simplicity of it all. With the elimination of the having to purchase software, we have really simplified the whole implementation and setup of it. There's no sensitive card information that you're responsible for. There's no network that you have to set up. There's no additional training that you have to take care of. We handle everything from the simplicity of the implementation, setting everything up into our system and on our processor in order to handle that card processing order, to the training and the ongoing systems maintenance and the ongoing support. That is all handled through Harland Clarke in our solution. The really neat thing about our program is that it really is a plug and play. What we need to get this program up and running on your behalf is it requires a power outlet and a power source and an internet connection. As long as you can provide those two things, you can then have access to Instant Issue at any one of your branches. Now, the internet connection itself needs to be a DHCP. That does allow for the handling of the IP addresses, and it allows the printer to recognize that we are the ones that are communicating the information directly back into it. So that's the requirement on the internet connection. And then last but not least, it's the operation of it. As I mentioned earlier, no systems to manage, which is nice. Again, your ongoing resources within the FI are limited in what is needed. And it's a user-friendly web-based platform. There's no special software that you have to learn or anything. It's just a point, click, and very intuitive. We also wanted to look at something that was reliable. We had come across many stories that there were financial institutions that made the financial commitment to actually having Instant Issue put in there, but the machines were breaking down. And so we wanted to make sure that we had machines that were reliable, and that as new account holders were coming in and opening up accounts, and if they were coming in because they liked the idea of instantly walking away with a debit card or a credit card or an ATM card and having immediate access to their funds, that the machine and the technology that supports that customer enhancement is available. This is a proven technology that has been in the market over in Europe and Asia, Africa for a number of years. Each of these machines is calibrated and warranted up to 300,000 cards. It is a flat print technology, and with that, it means that the maintenance on these machines are much lower. And as I mentioned earlier, there is no annual contract, a maintenance contract that you'll get into. It also has a very small footprint. The actual printer itself, which is again unique to a lot of the models that are out there, is only 16 inches in length. It is approximately 9 inches in height and about 8 inches in width. This allows you a ton of flexibility on where you can actually put the machine within your branches. One of the main security regulations that you'll have to consider is that whether it's our program or some other Instant Issue program, you will actually need to have this under video surveillance. with this small footprint, this will allow you a ton of flexibility to be able to place the machine in an area of your branches that already has video surveillance. So you will not have to go through any additional or extra costs of having to set up additional video surveillance in order to support and meet the regulations and the securities around instant issue. And even with the small footprint, allowing that flexibility, it's an extremely quiet operation. It is a laser printer, so the print processing of it will still allow, wherever you put it, those employees that are having one-to-one conversations with those card holders or those customers of yours to be able to continue on those conversations and not be disrupted as the card is printing out. With everything that's going on in the markets with incursions into cards and the heightened awareness around PCI and security, security was a big issue, and we wanted to make sure that it met not only the minimums of what Visa and MasterCard and what their security requirements are, but how can we also improve the overall experience for the financial institution. With this particular solution, we have taken away the financial institution of having to load in the very sensitive card information into your instant issue program. As this bullet point points out, is that there are no keys, whether it be for PIN purposes or CVC. There's no track information. There's nothing that has to be loaded into these machines. We actually handle all of that very sensitive card information in our Visa and MasterCard secured facilities out of Nashville. The other thing that we've done with our program that's different than a lot of other programs is our program is actually fully PCI certified. Now, all the instant issue programs out there have their components that are PCI compliant. In other words, they meet the regulations for PCI compliance. However, because with a software for purchase solution, it's the responsibility of the financial institution to actually set up the software, to connect the network, the communication network from software to dedicated server back to the printer. Because they are an integral part of setting the rest of the solution up, if somebody else, if you had a software for purchase solution, the onus would fall on the financial institution to actually go through the PCI certification process and auditing in order to have a fully PCI certified solution. With our solution, which is software for service, we handle the full communication from the secured web portal back to our processor. It is our server that actually is handling the processing of the card order, and once again, it is our encryption methodology, and it is our communication portal that's sending the information back to the actual printer itself. So we control all the different aspects of communication and processing of this particular instant issue program. Because we control everything, we took the responsibility of going through the actual PCI audit, and now what we're able to offer, which our competitors are not, is a fully certified PCI program. And then last but not least, what we're looking at is economical. Instant issue is a wonderful solution. Most financial institutions agree of the benefits and how it can enhance the overall relationship with their cardholders. But having to purchase software, having to purchase, ongoing licensing fees and annual maintenance contracts, a lot of those were hurdles that were just very difficult for them to overcome. We really have taken away all of the major hurdles and objections of having to get into instant issue from a cost perspective with this very economical solution. So with that stated, I want to kind of go in and give you some ideas about how the actual card order works. And what we have is a pictograph of how this card ordering process works. And as I kind of go through a very high level of the process flow of this, I will then next transition into screenshots of what it would look like of the information that's being entered in. First and foremost is the card order itself will actually be entered into and transmitted to us through a secured web portal. And what the information that will be required and that we need to receive is the individual's name, the 16-digit primary account number, or the PAN, the expiration date for that card, and then depending on how you want to handle it, the PIN offset. So we are requesting those 4 pieces of information. Once those 4 pieces of information are entered into the secured web portal, it is then transmitted to our secured server in Nashville, Tennessee. We then go through with that information, run it through an algorithm, and run it through a validating process to make sure that the PAN is a correct PAN and a valid PAN. We then encrypt the information, and that encrypted data then is sent back to the in-branch printer, again via the secured web portal. The in-branch printer actually has a microprocessor built within the printer itself, and this is, again, very unique to the CardOnce solution that we're providing. This microprocessor then allows us to decrypt the message and send the encoded information and the printed information into the right places within the printer, and then the actual card fully prints as well as becomes encoded, and the system will then instantly confirm back to the individual that has just created this card order the successful printing and PIN calculation of that particular card. If there is any problems with the printing of the card itself, an invalid PAN or some sort of error, there will be an invalid message that goes back to that individual again instantly. So they would have the option of re-entering in the PAN or correcting whatever problem has occurred that is not allowing the card to print. This whole process that I just described, once the information is entered into the system, sent to our processor, fully ran through the validation and calculations, and then sent back to the printer to print out, takes less than 2 minutes. So it's a very expedient, very quick process in order from the time that the card order is sent to the card order is actually printed out and available. And at that point, the account holder leaves the financial institution with a card that is fully printed with account number, expiration date, their name, the CVV code or CVC code on the back, and it's fully encoded, and it's fully functioning once the financial institution transmits to their EFT processor that this is a new card, just like you normally would on any type of standard personalization process. You're indicating to them when you have a new card. Same would have to happen here. And what we would do is then once the EFT processor recognizes that new card, those cards would then become automatically active. So let's take a look now next at what we have as far as screenshots that are available and what this process would look like for your employees that are opening up new accounts. Very first, here is just your main landing screen, and as you can see, there's a dashboard up top where you have a number of different functions that are available, whether you're printing a card, looking up previous jobs for auditing purposes, allowing someone to change their PIN, looking up reports again for auditing purposes, or even administrative rights where you're changing profiles or user managers, things like that. I will point out that like any type of secured web service, you would be able to assign different rights and functions for different employees within your financial institution. Obviously, from an auditing standpoint, you might have those individuals only going in being able to create and look at reports. You would have your frontline staff that is having one-on-one conversations with your customers. They would be able to go in and print the card and create the card order. You will have an administrative level individuals that will be able to add, delete, change passwords for individual users. Every user that goes into the secured web portal will have a user ID and a password. So from a security standpoint, you will be able to track all of their activities and their behaviors within the system itself. All right, let's take a look at some of these screenshots look at. The first screen is along the top. You can see that there's a number of little items that you go through. The very first one is choosing the printer. Our system does allow for you to have the consideration of, do you want this at all of your branches, or do you just want it at some centralized branches but feed instant issue card order requests into those printers? So if you have a 10-branch system, but you only want to utilize 3 of your branches to actually print the cards, all 10 branches could still offer instant issue and request instant issue cards. However, depending on the printer that the individual branch chooses, they could send that card order to the printer at that branch. And then the dialogue in the script with the new account holder or card holder would simply be, would you like to go pick your card up at branch A? If not, we can have it, securely shipped over here, and you can pick it up tomorrow, or whatever you want to do. So you get to choose the printer. Next is the card information and what needs to be entered. And what we will have, and you can see at the bottom of this page is where it says Select Program. You'll have a drop-down list of all your different bins that are available. Once the employee selects the type of bin that it is, consumer debit, consumer credit, business debit, we will pre-populate the first 6 digits, which is the bin number. The last 10 digits, which are the variable numbers, will need to be provided to us. They will then provide the expiration date, as well as the cardholder name. And if this is a business account, you could then add a secondary line of information and perhaps put the business name on it. Now, best practices would have you verify with the individual across the desk that their name is correctly spelled. The PAN itself, which is represented by the first 6 digits as well as the 10 variable digits, that will be information that you will receive from either your core platform or your EFT platform. When it comes to a new account opening and creating a new card order, you will follow your same exact process that you are currently doing to create that new card order in your core platforms or EFT platforms. And by creating it there first, you will then be able to create the PAN, which will give you the information that you need, as well as the expiration date to transfer over into this system. The next screen is an optional screen. If you want to, you could certainly collect additional cardholder information. Now, in the case that this is a brand new account, you have just collected this information, so you are secure in the idea that this information is updated and relevant. However, if it's a replacement card, someone had a card lost or stolen, and maybe they've been an account holder of your FI for a number of years, this is a good place for you to make sure that you have the most updated information. But it is optional, so oftentimes you will just screen right through here and going on to the next screen. After then we select the actual image that gets to be put on the card. And we're going to have 2 options available in our CardOnce solution, and I'll talk about those 2 options next. What we are showing here is the ability to have multiple images available for your cardholders to choose from. And these can be preset images that you design along with our design team that are very unique to your financial institution. And then the account holder can choose what they want from a cardholder design or from a card design to go onto their card holder. And then last but not least, as we see as we're moving along, is the PIN selection. And again, it will come down to how you want your cardholder to be able to select their PIN. If you have the ability within your branches right now to create or change their PIN through a hardware, like a MagTech type of machine or an MCAT or an Oscar, then what you will do is you will do a manual selection entered via the computer, the one that is on the left hand of this screen. If you are using our PIN pad device, you would then select the one that's on the left side of the screen, and the account holder would then end up selecting their PIN at the time of process or putting this order together in our secured web portal. The MagTech unit that we provide you, the PIN pad, would then calculate the PIN offset, and it would populate our screen with what the PIN offset is, and then that card would then be encoded with the PIN offset. We would then create a PIN offset report and send it back directly to the financial institution immediately. So again, the individual who is opening up the account or the employee who's opening up the account would be able to take that PIN offset and order it and enter it into your core or EFT platform immediately. So as you communicate the new card order to your EFT processor, that they have the PIN offset as well that correlates directly to the actual PIN that that individual created. Now there was a question, I'm just going to handle this real quickly, is can someone change their PIN at an ATM? Any type of PIN changing process that you have in place right now, once we distribute the card through the CardOnce printer and we encode it and we emboss it, anything that you have in place as far as changing the PIN, that would be able to remain in place and would be able to would be able to stay the same. So we would not necessarily change that product and service that you are currently providing them. I will tell you, however, though, if the only option that you have available is to allow your cardholder to change their PIN at an ATM or through an IVR system, then you will need to have a PIN pad solution in order to run instant issue. And the reason I say that is that typically in order to change your PIN at an ATM or through some sort of IVR solution, the individual actually needs to know what their PIN is in order to make that change. And then once they make that change, a new PIN offset is calculated and then is communicated to the EFT processor. However, if you are doing instant issue and you do not allow for the individual to select their PIN up front, there is no way for us to efficiently communicate to them what the computer-generated PIN was created for that card. Thus, you would not allow them to actually be able to change their PIN through an ATM or IVR. So they can certainly change their PIN after the card has been processed with a PIN that has been selected and a PIN offset that has been generated either through an existing machine or a PIN pad that has been purchased through Harland Clarke. And there are different scenarios with every financial institution, and we would be more than happy to sit down with you on an individual basis and talk to you about how that works for your individual program. But I wanted to handle that question on PIN selection and ATM PIN because it was timely. There are really two ways that you can print cards. The first is the black ribbon. And what you're using here is you're using pre-printed or even existing card stock. And what prints black on the card is the individual's name, the PAN, the expiration date on the front, and the CVV code on the back. And with the after those pieces of information are printed onto the card, they're actually burned directly onto the card. We then provide a protective overlay during the printing process. And the printing process with black ribbon takes just a little under a minute. The second option is what we call edge-to-edge configuration, and it actually uses a 4-color ribbon. And as we'll see on the next slide, what it does is it uses white cardstock. And so the white cardstock would come with the existing or the current card association logo, either Visa or MasterCard, the hologram, the magnetic stripe on the back, the signature panel. And what we would then print on the card at the time of printing would be obviously the PAN, the individual's name, the expiration date on the front, and the CVV or CVC code on the back. But we would then also print whatever image the individual cardholder selected to go onto their card, as well as any terms and conditions, network bugs, anything else that you wanted printed on the back. So this is a fully print-on-demand technology. Where this works really well is if you are going to run multiple card programs through Instant Issue. This allows you to use more of a generic Visa stock, for example, and print a Visa debit, a Visa credit, a business debit, a business credit card, using all basically the same type of stock. If you are looking to run still just one bin through here, maybe you're just your consumer debit, but you want to offer multiple design options available, edge-to-edge is also a very good solution as well. The printing process, this takes just a little over a minute. The whole process altogether takes less than 2 minutes. And we will be able to take any questions that you have on this in particular as we move forward. But moving on to our last slide of the day before we open this up for questions. The big question, CardOnce additional considerations. Okay, so you are sold on the idea of instant issue. You understand the benefits to your card holders. It meets some of your goals to try to enhance your new account opening experience. It's going to be a differentiator for you in the market versus your competitors. It is a way for you to actually look at cost savings on what your current program is. But at the end of the day, you know, there are still other considerations. And first and foremost is your card order requirements. And these are internal discussions that we would be more than happy to play a part in and help you kind of facilitate. But the web portal access, do you want it at all of your branches, the printers, or do you want to do it more centralized or regionalized? Which branch personnel do you want to have access to this web portal? Information that's going to need to go into the web portal, the PAN, the cardholder name, the expiration date. What will be your process for transferring and getting that information actually into the web portal itself? And then how are you going to handle the cardholder selected PIN? Do you currently have something in place, or are you going to need to purchase the PIN pad solution that we have available? So those will be some of the card order requirements. The EFT processing system considerations, and these will be conversations that you will need to have around the actual, with your EFT processor. Where are you going to get that PAN from? And that 16-digit account number. The PIN offset field, how is that going to be communicated back to the EFT processor? If it's something that you're currently doing now, that process is already in place. If it's going to be utilizing our PIN pad solution, you're going to want to talk around the process and how that is going to actually be communicated back to them. And then the do not mail card indicator. Because you will be issuing some cards through instant issue, you obviously do not want them also being distributed through the mail. And so you'll have to be able to indicate to your EFT processor that this is a new card that you need to recognize, but please do not mail this card because it's already been distributed. And then last but not least is, as you are considering the edge-to-edge solution and you have the ability to provide multiple card designs for that individual, how are you going to want to handle the reissues of those card designs for that individual when their card is about to expire? Are you going to want to use a base stock where everyone gets just a common card stock then on the reissues, or do you want to be able to reissue on the same exact image that they provided at the beginning, that you provided when they first opened it? In order to do the second part of that, in order to provide the exact same card image, you need to have an image identifier field within the card record itself. And then, of course, reissue considerations, edge-to-edge is what we're talking about here. Is do you want a common card type or a selected image? The big thing that comes in is that now that you understand the whole program, or you've got an idea of what it is really what's going to be my return of investment. You know, it really comes down to you either are interested and understand the benefits of instant issue, and it's something that you feel can enhance your existing offering. But really, what does the cost come down to? And what we would like to do is we would like to create a return of investment document for you. And how we handle this is quite simple. We're going to look at basically 3 aspects of your current program and the instant issue program itself. Number 1 would be, if you go with instant issue with Harland Clarke Card Services, what will be your initial investment? How many machine printers do you want? How many pin pads do you need? What is your annual output of cards? All of that will go into your initial investment and your ongoing costs. Secondly, we're going to take a look at how the ongoing cost of instant issue compares to your existing costs of your standard or more conventional through the mail type of card issuance. You know, as it was pointed out at the beginning, one of the many benefits is the cost savings. Immediately, instant issue eliminates the need for postage. It eliminates the need for card envelopes, card carriers, activation stickers. There's no file processing fees that are being charged. So there is a cost savings that comes with Instant Issue. And then, of course, the other aspect of this is with Instant Issue, you're getting the card into the individual's hands, typically on average anywhere from 7 to 10 days sooner than if that card were to go through the mail. And those 7 to 10 days provides an opportunity for incremental increase in revenue for that card. And our ROI will take a look at, over that 7 to 10 day period, what additional revenue will this card bring your program. And I will admit, and I will say that our ROI model, in particular when it comes to increase in revenue, limits the revenue gained by that card to that 8-day period. There are other ROIs out there that you may have seen before that take into consideration that incremental revenue and do it for infinity. Our program is very much more true to what you'll actually receive. Is it will limit itself to that 8-day period. So between the money that we're saving compared to what you're currently paying for standard issued cards, to the incremental revenue, bouncing that off of what your initial investment is, we would be willing to put together an ROI document for you. So really, in order to do that, you need to contact your Harland Clarke account executive and provide the following information: cost of processing your current card program, batch and processing fees, postage fees, annual volumes of new and replacement cards, and then the estimate number of pin pads. And if you contact them, then we'd be able to do that. So now we're going to move into the final question and answering session that we have available. Chris, if you'd like to give instructions on how they can queue up for questions on the telephone, that would be great.
Thank you. Once again, if you would like to ask a question, please signal by pressing the star key followed by the digit 1 on your telephone keypad. Once again, that's star 1 to ask a question on the phones.
All right. As they are queuing up, there are a number of questions that actually have come in, and I'm going to start handing these out. One of them has come in with the integration to core applications or core processors. CardOnce is a relatively new program into the market, and with any new program, it is taking time in order for us to build out those integrations. I will tell you that we are in the process of building integrations with Scimitar through Jack Henry, the Jack Henry platforms that you'll see from Silver Lake 2020 and Passport, as well as FIS and their different platforms. We have a number of integrations that have started there, and even the Fiserv platforms, the ITI, the Premier, the Summit, the Spectrums. We have a number of integrations and discussions that are going on with those. So from an integrated, what we have from an integration right now, we have a core processor, EFT processor out of the Southeast called CSI, where there is an integration that is built through it. The other main integrations are under works right now with no exact time frame. However, there is interest in both parties for both Harland Clarke and the CardOnce solution and these different core processors to build out these integrations. So it's not a matter of do we have or if we're going to do it, it's now has become a matter of when. There is another question here is, what are the incremental cost components to be able to print cards at a branch? That's an excellent question. What we're looking at from a cost perspective is that you've got a cost for the printers themselves. The upfront cost, if you're going with just a black ribbon, is $5,000. If you want to upgrade to the edge-to-edge printing, it would actually be $5,500 in total, so it's a $500 upgrade. After that, that is basically, from a hardware, your setup cost from a printer perspective. If you wanted to opt into our pin pad solution, it would be $300 per pin pad. And because we have no annual contracts and because we have no annual maintenance fees or licensing fees that you need to purchase from us, how we process and price out our program is very similar to how you're paying for your standard conventional personalization services right now. We charge a per card processing fee. So every time you send a card over to us, we're going to charge you a small fee of 55 cents. If you are utilizing our pin pad solution, it would be 17 cents to calculate the pin and the pin offset. If you're using your own solution, you would not have that fee. If you're using our edge-to-edge solution, we would have a 55-cent image processing fee. There are other considerations from a consumable standpoint that goes with. There are other considerations that go into it, like consumables, like cards, stock, and ribbon usage, and that would all be part of ROI. We would set that out to you. Let's see, another question is, there is no service contract required. Who would service the equipment printer if failed? Excellent question. What we do is we ask you that you call into a simple 800 service number. That service number, then you'll deal with a technician. If we cannot get the printer up and working actively online through a simple series of troubleshooting steps, we will overnight you a brand new printer. We simply ask you that you package up the printer that was not functioning correctly, repackage it, and ship it back to us. We have two ways that you can pay for that. Both of them are rapid replacement programs that within 24 hours that replacement program goes out there. The first way to pay for that is a per incident. It's $195. That includes the shipping to your financial institution. And then lastly is the $350 would cover that for a 3-year period. Looking for what is the maximum amount of cards you can print per day on the printer. There's no maximum amount that can print on the printer per day. It is as much as you want. Now, I know that we are coming up to the end of this hour, and there certainly are a number of questions that are still in queue. We will stay on and chat and follow up with all the questions. We will put together these questions that have come into us in an email, and we'll distribute it out to everyone. But if people need to drop off the phone, we certainly understand that. I can certainly hang on and answer any questions for those that might still have some time, and we'll continue to work through that. Right now, I'm going to bounce it back to Chris. Chris, do you want to, anyone come in through the telephone?
We do not have any telephone questions at this time.
Okay. Because we are at the end of our hour, I want to thank all of those that were able to participate in our time. We will follow up with your questions as they have queued up, and I will sit on here for another couple more minutes and answer any questions that have remained unanswered. One question came in is, can it coexist with other instant issue MegTech, other instant issue programs, MegTech? For example, we have 20 MegTech instant issue machines, but wanted to try the CardOnce simultaneously. The difficulty with that would be internally tracking, the different orders. I mean, you could certainly run orders out of one branch through our machine. That was certainly something that you could handle, because our systems will be communicating directly with and only with one another, so that would certainly something that you could certainly put in place. Question came in is, do you have a pin pad at each computer? They order a card. Yeah, the pin pads are not actually toggled directly to the printer themselves, but to the individual's workstation. So best practices would have a minimum of 2 or 3 pin pads per branch. Ideally, you would have it at each new account opening station, just for the convenience of being able to select that pin. Do you offer single sign-on so that a user is signed into the CardOnce software when they log into the bank's network? They would have to sign on directly into the CardOnce software separately from the bank's network. Let's see, I'm going through some additional, there are some additional questions here, but I'm trying to highlight some of the more popular ones. What are your current uptime rates? Excellent question. We actually have a very good uptime rates. It is over, I mean, it's minuscule, but it's measured 99.999 to some degree uptime. One of the other great solutions and the big benefits of the software for service is that because we own the communication network between our server and the actual printers themselves, is that we are constantly monitoring all of the communication streams between server and printers. And anytime a printer is offline or is not able to be communicated to directly, we are then made aware of that, and then we can communicate that out to the financial institution, and we can oftentimes troubleshoot before the financial institution is even aware of that. So now another question is, can we use the software with one license but have two printers at separate locations to print cards at both? Yeah, that's exactly it. First off, it's software for service. So really what you're doing is you're just considering which branches you want to put the printers in. And you could have it at all of your branches. You could have it at a single centralized branch. It really is up to you, and it will not change the overall annual cost of the program. It will only change the incremental cost of your startup when it comes to how many printers or pin pads that you want to buy. If there is a claim issued on a card, how long will it take for the client to get a refund? Well, you know, again, this is really just if it is a invalid card printing, they can actually immediately reissue and reprint that card. However, if it's a dispute or something that is with a merchant, that would be handled through your normal dispute channels, whether that's Visa involved, the merchant involved, your EFT processor involved, that type of thing. So I will implementation time on this. You would expect a normal 4 to 6 week time frame to be able to get a CardOnce solution up and tested. You know, variables in that time frame will be access to your PIN and CVV track information, BIN information, that type of stuff, being able to transmit that to Harland Clarke so we could upload that into our system. Then we would go through a series of testing and being able to get it up and running, and then of course getting the card inventory, all of that managed. So, you know, we can certainly do something in a 4 to 6 week time frame, but those time frames changes as information that needs to be gathered to get this up and running maybe isn't as readily available to the FI as they first thought. Chris, I'll go to you one last time to see if anyone came in from the phone.
No, we do not have any questions at the phone at this time.
Okay, Greg, this is Nicole. I do see one other question that I don't believe was caught, and that was when you create a card, and as you mentioned, the member would at that point enter the personalized PIN. If they would want to change their PIN at a later date, would you have to create another card, or could it just be changed on the original issued card? And really what this kind of comes down to how your financial institution's processor is recognizing the PIN offset. So if the PIN offset is being read off the card to recognize the PIN, then you would need to create another card because these machines are not going to re-encode an already encoded card. But if you are using a host-based system, then indeed you could have your account holder put in their PIN number, and it would read you back a PIN offset. That's what you would load into your processing system, and then it would recognize that PIN. So it's all in how your processor currently recognizes your PIN offsets and PINs today.
Great.
I think we caught all the other questions.
So once again, thank you everyone for your time this afternoon. Please feel free to reach out to your Harland Clarke account executive for additional product information, or if you're looking for a detailed return of investment. And Chris, I'll bounce it back to you for the end of the webinar.
And this does conclude today's presentation. Thank you for joining, and have a nice day.